Hi, I'm Derek Owusu. I'm a writer and poet, and I'm the author of 2 books, with 2 more coming out next year in 2022. One is a children's book that I've authored with DJ Locksmith, who is a member of the drum and bass band Rudimental, and the next one is a poetry collection. But today I'm going to be talking about my second book, which was my first novel, called That Reminds Me, and I'm going to be just taking you through the process of how I wrote it, everything that led up to me writing it, and to give you some tips to help you with the book that you're currently writing. So for me, writing all began when I was about 4 years old. I used to write stories. I used to love writing stories, detailed, or what I thought were detailed stories. I think I was about 8 years old. And I remember I'd written about 10 pages, just kind of fluff. And my teacher came up to my desk, looked at my writing, my handwriting was terrible. I had a bad habit of when I would write on the page, my writing would slant. So it'd be like a triangle on the page. And the teacher took one look at my writing, didn't read the story, just said, "Your handwriting is terrible," and walked off. And that really burnt me at the time, because I thought I'd done something amazing because I'd written 10 pages of a story. To add to that, in assembly, she spoke to the entire year and said, "Yes, some of you need to improve on your handwriting." And then all of the kids did that thing where they turn around and look at the person that they know the teacher is talking about. And that was more embarrassment for me, so I just decided that I'm not going to write ever again. That was my stance until I was about 12. And then I discovered rap music and became completely obsessed with conscious rappers, mainly Nas, Talib Kweli, Mos Def. Because of the wordplay and the way they used to rap, it wasn't particularly what they were talking about, it was the way that they put lyrics together, like multi-syllable rhymings and different rhyme schemes, patterns and things like that. I was really obsessed with that. I just loved the way it sounded. I loved looking up the words that they were using and things like that. So I just then started to write my own raps. And I wasn't very good. But it gave me an insight into how I'm supposed to be writing, because what would happen is that I would write so much in one bar. So for example, in a rap verse, you'd have 16 bars, and you need to fit everything you want to say into one bar so that you're on beat. I was never on beat. I would always write too much and try and say too much in one bar, and it would spill over. So I just was a terrible rapper. So then I started adapting that into what I thought was poetry, and then just started writing loads of poems, just for myself, as most people do. You keep them hidden, don't want anyone else to read them, think they're terrible, but you just do them because you just like doing it. So I was doing that for a very long time. And then I went to university, and that's when everything changed. I discovered literature. I went to university when I was 24, wasn't ready to go at 18, and I'm glad I didn't go at 18, because I just would have partied and done nothing, done no work. I probably wouldn't have even graduated. So I went to uni at 24 to study exercise science, because I was a personal trainer at the time and I wanted to train athletes. My first research methods lecture, the lecturer said to us, go and read some novels, read some scientific papers, because he said to us, even though this is exercise science, you will not be doing any practical work. It's all going to be writing. So if you're not in the habit of writing essays, go and read some books. So I went to the library and decided to read some novels. I didn't know what to pick up, so I started with short stories, and I was going to build my way up. And that's important as well for anybody who wants to be a writer. It's important that you read as much as you can. At the time, I didn't know that this is what I wanted to do, but I just wanted to get into reading. So I started with a short story by an author called D.H. Lawrence, and just became completely obsessed with literature. I had to read every day, otherwise I would feel uncomfortable. And I just was internalizing how to write without even knowing it. So as I was writing my essays, my first essay that I wrote, I remember I got a 2-2, and the lecturer, some of the notes was like, you really need to improve your writing because it's not very good, your grammar's all over the place, so on and so forth. I didn't pay much attention to that, but because I was devouring so many books, my next essay, I got a first, and my lecturer actually asked me, he said, what happened? Why is this so dramatically different from the first essay you gave? And I didn't know why, but it's because I was reading so much and I was internalizing how to structure sentences and where everything goes. One thing that I think a lot of people could probably relate to is that a lot of people don't actually understand the rules of grammar. They just know where things are supposed to go instinctively. You know, you write a sentence, you know, okay, a comma's supposed to go there, or a full stop's supposed to go there. It's only after I was writing like that, and I decided I wanted to take writing a bit more seriously, that I started to read books about grammar so that I could understand what it was that I was actually doing. So I became obsessed with literature, and then I just decided to write some book reviews. Started writing book reviews, and in that way I was able to deconstruct the text in a way that, again, would help me when it came to writing my own things. And I didn't know that this is what I was doing. You know, there's a big difference between reading for pleasure and reading critically, reading with a kind of like a writer's eye, being able to really take things apart and understand what the author is trying to do. I was doing that just so that I could write book reviews. But again, I was internalizing how to structure things, how things are supposed to go. So I started writing book reviews. And then I began to go back to the poetry that I'd written before to have a look at it and say to myself, is this any good? I remember I contacted a university lecturer to have a look at some of my poems. You know, begrudgingly, she had a look at 2 of them and said that she doesn't usually do this for people who are not on the poetry degree. And she essentially told me they were terrible poems. But that didn't deter me because I was so into literature at the time. I just thought, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to write this. Write in this way. And the way that I was writing at the time was free verse. You know, I wasn't bound by any kind of forms or structures. I wasn't interested in writing with meters. You know, I wanted to know about iambic pentameter and things like that. You know, what a dactyl was and how the authors had done theirs. But I had no interest in doing that and writing like that because I just feel like it didn't really apply to me and the way I speak and the things that I wanted to say. From there, I tried to change my degree to do an English literature degree. Couldn't do that, so I started instead sneaking into English literature lectures at the University of Manchester, just so that I could learn a lot more. So I was kind of doing 2 degrees at the same time. I would sometimes take the essays and write the English literature essays as well as doing my exercise science work, just because I enjoyed it so much. And then it's after university, when I graduated, that I thought to myself, okay, I'm going to write a novel one day. I want to do this. I really want to try and put a book together, but I don't have enough life experience yet to write it. So I decided I'll try and write it when I'm 50 or 60, when a lot of things have happened to me in my life. And I believe a lot of people think that they haven't got enough life experience to write a novel. But one thing that I've come to realize now is that you can write a novel out of literally anything. Absolutely anything. You can take anything and turn it into a novel, or turn it into a short story. And from a short story, you can build that into a novel. Anything can be developed. It doesn't really matter how much life experience you have. You've lived for a year. You could live for a day. You could have an interesting day and turn that into a novel. So that's an important thing to remember. So, you know, life circumstances changed for me a lot when I finished university, and I was almost forced to write a novel. It was almost like I had no choice but to do this. And I was about 29 when I started writing. That Reminds Me was born out of a particular set of circumstances that happened in my life. You know, I was going through a rough time. I had recently been diagnosed with a mental health issue called borderline personality disorder. And I was in something called a recovery house, which is not quite a kind of psychiatric ward, but it's in the middle, where there's still nurses in there and they still give you your medication and they look after you. So while I was there, I was so baffled by how I got there that I just started writing. I started writing a story, kind of like an alter ego, about a young boy, very similar to myself, and what would have to happen during his life in order for him to develop a personality disorder. That's how it began. And once I started writing, that's when I really started to think about things. So I didn't plan. So a lot of writers will plan. They will have, like, you know, detailed plan on their wall, break down everything that happens, all the characters, and, you know, meticulously put everything together. Every writer has their own way of doing it. I know the writer John Irving can't write his novels until he's written the last sentence first, and then he works his way backwards. But a lot of writers are just intuitive writers. So they just start writing and just keep going. And then afterwards think about everything else when they're doing the editing process. And that's how I work. So what I'm going to be doing now as well, actually, is taking you through the different stages of the writing process in terms of character, tone, plot, you know, the ideas that I'm trying to convey in the novel That Reminds Me, and give you some advice to help you, I guess, fine tune what it is that you're trying to do at the moment.